Hello, I'm your host Maika, and today we'll be ranking my top 5 favorite uniforms used by the United States military over the course of the history of the United States. That's right, United States. Alright, now, without further ado, let's get on to it. Enjoy. At number 5, we have the uniform of the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War. It varied widely due to supply shortages and decentralized nature of colonial forces. Initially, soldiers wore everyday clothing or hunting shirts, but efforts were made to standardize attire as the war progressed. The standard uniform included a blue coat with contrasting facings in red, white, or buff, indicating the soldier's regiment. Trousers were typically linen or wool, ranging in color from white to buff or brown. The soldiers wore waistcoats or vests beneath their coats. Footwear consisted of leather shoes or boots, often supplemented by gaiters or splats to protect the lower legs. Headgear was diverse, with the tricorn hat being the most common. This hat had 3 sides turned up and was often adorned with a cockade or insignia to denote rank or allegiance. Some soldiers, particularly in the light infantry, wore caps or bonnets for practicality. Despite efforts to standardize uniforms, the Continental Army's attire often reflected the realities of war and supply constraints, resulting in a mix of military and civilian clothing. Over time, aid from France improved the uniformity and quality, enhancing the cohesion and effectiveness of American forces. In 4th place, we have the uniform worn during the Philippine-American War. The United States military uniform reflected the transitional period between the traditional 19th century styles and the more modern 20th century designs. The standard U.S. Army field uniform for enlisted men and uniforms was the M1998 khaki cotton field uniform. Introduced during the Spanish-American War, this uniform consisted of a single-breasted coat with 5 brass buttons, 4 patch pockets, and a standing collar. Trousers were made of matching khaki material, often secured with a belt. The uniform was completed with a campaign hat, typically a wide-brimmed slouch hat made of felt, which provided some protection from the sun and rain. Soldiers also wore canvas leggings to protect their lower legs from the underbrush and insects. Officers had slight variations in the uniforms, such as the addition of rank insignias and more refined materials. The khaki color was chosen for its suitability in the tropical environment for the Philippines, offering better camouflage than the traditional blue uniforms previously used. Additionally, due to the hot and humid climate, soldiers often adapted their uniforms for comfort, sometimes rolling up their sleeves or modifying their gear for better ventilation. These uniforms represented the practical needs of soldiers operating in the challenging conditions of the Philippine archipelago and marked a shift towards more utilitarian and environment-appropriate military attire in the United States Army's history. At number 3, we have the uniform of the Union Army during the American Civil War. It was distinct and symbolized the identity of the federal forces. The standard uniform was predominantly blue, consisting of a dark blue woolen frock coat and lighter blue trousers. Enlisted men typically wore a forage cap, or kepi, which was short, round cap with a flat top and small visor. The coats often had brass buttons, and many units displayed their regimental numbers or state designations on their uniforms. Overcoats with capes were issued for cold weather, and these, like frock coats, were blue. The Union Army also utilized various insignia, shoulder straps, and chevrons to denote rank and a unit affiliation, adding to the distinctiveness and organization of the uniform. A key component of the Union uniform was a hat, the kepi being the most common headgear. Kepi was derived from the French military cap and became widely adopted for its practicality and ease of production. It was made of wool and with a leather visor and chin strap. Kepis were often adorned with a brass insignia, indicating the soldier's unit and rank. Officers had higher-ranking soldiers sometimes wore a more formal hat known as a Hardie hat or Jefferson Davis hat, which was a black felt hat with a wide brim, often decorated with a branch insignia and a feather or cord. These hats were more ceremonial, but could be seen in the field, particularly among officers. The hat, whether a kepi or Hardie hat, not only served as protection from the elements, but also played a crucial role in fostering the unity and identity within the Union ranks. At number 2, we have the uniform worn during the Vietnam War. During the Vietnam War, the uniform of the American forces was specifically designed to address the challenging conditions of the Southeast Asian environment. The standard combat attire was the olive drab OD jungle fatigues, known as a tropical combat uniform, made from lightweight, breathable, and quick-drying materials such as ripstop cotton or cotton nylon blend. The uniform included a loose-fitting jacket and trousers, each with multiple pockets for carrying around essential items. This design ensured better ventilation and comfort during long patrols and combat operations. Soldiers also wore jungle boots with canvas and leather uppers, reinforced toes, and rubber soles with a Panama tread pattern to improve traction in wet and muddy conditions. The boots featured drainage holes to prevent water retention and reduce the risk of foot infections. Headgear included the boonie hat and the M1 steel helmet. The boonie hat was a cool hat that had a wide brim and provided great shade and rain protection. The M1 helmet was made out of metal and was only rated to stop shrapnel. It was not bulletproof. In addition to that, the M16 rifle was used during the Vietnam War, but that is a gun, and I'm not going to talk about this much because this is for school. And for first place, we have the BDU. This uniform was used from the early 1980s to the late 2000s. What makes this uniform special is that it was one of the first uniforms to have camouflage as a widespread use among all branches. This uniform was used by the Marines, the Navy, Army, and Air Force. Maybe some other ones. I don't know. The camouflage on this uniform is called M81. It's an iteration of a pattern called ERDL used during the Vietnam War by Special Forces personnel. The pattern, called M81, was created in 1981 and featured a distinct 4-color pattern that was designed to be disruptive to the human eye. While the pattern would only be used for about 20 years after it was phased out by UCP, it remains my favorite of all time due to its predominantly green color palette that was used before the United States started getting into conflicts in the desert. This pattern was used during the various conflicts such as the invasion of Grenada, Panama, the Gulf War, and Operation Just Cause.